Oil paint may look simple, just a mix of color and oil, but it's one of the most expensive art materials in the world. A single liter of high-quality oil paint can cost hundreds, sometimes even up to $1,000. That's more than some luxury perfumes or even rare bottles of whiskey. So why is something as basic as paint so costly? Let's break it down in a way that's easy to understand. The first and most important reason is pigments. Pigments are the tiny particles that give paint its color, and not all pigments are the same. Some are common and cheap, like earth pigments that give us browns or reds, but others are rare and difficult to produce. For centuries, ultramarine blue was the most valuable pigment in the world. It was made by grinding a gemstone called lapis lazuli, which was mined only in Afghanistan. Back then, ultramarine was worth more than gold. Artists could only afford to use it in very small amounts, usually for the most important parts of a painting, like the robes of the Virgin Mary in Renaissance art. Other pigments had even stranger sources. Indian yellow, for example, was once made from the urine of cows fed only on mango leaves. It created a glowing yellow that artists loved, but the process was cruel and eventually banned. Then there was mummy brown, which, yes, was actually made from ground-up Egyptian mummies. These stories may sound unbelievable, but they show how far artists and suppliers went to find colors. Today, of course, we don't rely on cows or mummies for paint. Instead, scientists make synthetic pigments in labs, but that doesn't always make them cheap. Some modern pigments require advanced chemistry, high-temperature furnaces, and complex processes that take a lot of time and money. For example, quinacridone pigments, used to make bright reds and violets, were originally discovered in the production of car paint. To adapt them for artist use, companies had to refine the process so the pigment would be safe, stable, and long-lasting on canvas. The second reason oil paint is expensive is the production process itself. Making high-quality paint isn't as easy as just mixing powder and oil. Each pigment behaves differently, so manufacturers have to experiment with the exact ratio of pigment to oil. Too much oil can make the paint dry unevenly or even crack over time. Too little, and the paint becomes brittle and chalky. This balance is crucial. Companies like Winsor and Newton, which has been making paints for almost 200 years, still use traditional grinding methods combined with modern technology. The pigments are ground into tiny particles, then milled together with oils like linseed or safflower. This process can take days or weeks, and each pigment requires special treatment. Some pigments absorb more oil than others, so every batch has to be carefully controlled. The third reason is testing. Artists expect their work to last centuries. Imagine spending months on a painting, only for the colors to fade after a few years. That's why paint companies run extensive tests. They check for things like lightfastness, which means how well a color resists fading under sunlight. They also test how pigments react with oils over time, whether they darken, crack, or change shade. These tests can take months or even years before a new color is approved for sale. Because of this testing, we can still see paintings from the 1400s or 1500s that look almost as bright as the day they were finished. That durability is one of the reasons oil paint is so respected. Another big factor is the artistic quality itself. Oil paint has a special property. It dries slowly. Unlike acrylics, which dry in minutes or hours, oils can take days or even weeks. At first, this may sound inconvenient, but for artists, it's a huge advantage. Slow drying means more time to blend colors, add layers, and make adjustments. An artist can keep reworking the same area until it looks exactly right. That flexibility is something no other paint medium can offer. Oil paint also allows for incredible depth and richness. Because the pigments are suspended in oil, the colors have a natural glow and vibrancy. When applied in layers, they create a depth that feels almost three-dimensional. That's why so many great masters, from Leonardo da Vinci to Van Gogh, chose oil paint for their masterpieces. And of course, price also depends on the quality you buy. Student-grade oil paints are cheaper because they contain less pigment and more filler. They're good for practice, but they don't have the same intensity or durability. Professional-grade paints, on the other hand, are packed with pure pigment and carefully balanced oils, which is why they're so much more expensive. One more thing that adds to the cost is the sheer variety of colors. Today's artists can choose from hundreds of shades, many of which are custom. Some rare pigments are produced in very small quantities, and limited supply naturally raises the price. So when you see a small tube of oil paint selling for $50 or more, you're not just paying for paint. You're paying for centuries of history for rare pigments that once came from the far corners of the earth. For scientific research and testing that ensures the color will last, and for the unmatched quality that oil paint gives to artists. In the end, oil paint is expensive because it's more than just a product. It's a combination of art, science, history, and craftsmanship, all packed into a single tube. That's what makes it unique and why artists still value it so highly today.